So welcome and thank you all for being here. We are so overjoyed to have so many people gathered with us here on this special day. We've been just talking about it and how in awe we are with the fact that we're turning 5. Can't even believe it. Sorry, I don't talk very loud. So we can't believe that we're turning 5. And you know, so as many know, Mavermore is like a baby to me and Noelle. We've been here since the roots of it, you know, since Father Eric, this weird white man, kind of just came up to us and gave us the challenge of doing more, you know, and just like, if you want something, make it happen. And it's so beautiful to see how far it has come, you know, from the roots. In the beginning, we were a theology body-based group, and with time, we started to see what the need was, and, you know, we were able to adapt to those needs and to adapt to your voice, what you were requesting. And we're so grateful to be here 5 years later, and God has been so good, because throughout these 5 years, everyone who's in ministry knows that it's not easy. It's not. And but God has been there, and He has provided. Any of those moments where we're like literally just holding on by the bare thread, He just provides, and He's there. And we've been like just reflecting on that and being so grateful. And now we're here gathered, and we've built such an amazing community that you guys are all a part of. Even if this is your first time, that's it. This is your initiation. So thank you so much for being here. And you know, and Made for More is about, you know, in like communicating the beauty of God's plan for us as young men and women here on earth, creating community, because we need to walk together. We can't do this alone. And serving, you know, serving through the many initiatives that there are, but even just in service with each other. Sometimes we just need to talk to each other. So thank you so much for being here. I'm talking too much. I'm going to pass it over to Brandon.
Yeah, Islaine, I'm sure she didn't present herself in the beginning, but she is the coordinator. So Islaine is the head of Made for More, really the one that coordinates everything. So that's my best friend, yeah. And so just going off on you know, what Islaine was saying, that you know, Made for More is really a community, right? It's not just us and the people that help out, but Made for More is all of you guys. Each of you are Made for More. Just like Islaine had said, you know, whether you were here at the first one, the first anniversary, the second anniversary, or whether this is your first time, know that you are welcome, that you are part of this as much as everybody is. So we're so grateful that you're here. And I know from my personal experience, just being able to see the growth of the group has been very beautiful. I remember during the pandemic when it just seemed like, you know, the world was disconnected and we were all distanced from one another. I know that I personally saw a resurgence in Made for More, just the activity and people just being able to connect with one another again. And I think even now, just being able to see not just the growth of the group, but also the growth of the team that's here. You know, you'll see like different team members that are helping out. You'll probably sit with them at different tables, but each of them has a very special role and has been able to contribute a lot this year. And I think a lot of that has been just a testament to how you know, God has really played a role in this group. And even just like Islaine had mentioned, you know, we started with Father Eric, who was a priest that really wanted to, you know, have young adults, have community here and be more present. And now we've been very fortunate. We have Father Stephen, who's here in the back. Our Australian priest. And we're just so blessed. Just that of the community that we have here, and really just you know, how God has brought everyone together. You know, I think for all of us, whenever we see just all the great things of Made for More, there's no denying God's existence, God's presence here in this group. And so before we pass it off, I wanted to just have Islaine introduce our guest speakers for tonight. We're going to be speaking on emotional chastity.
Thank you, Brandon. One of the great blessings from the pandemic, Brandon joining us. So, without further ado, I do want to introduce our 2 guest speakers for this evening. They are Jimmy and Chelsea. They are a lovely new couple. They are married under a year. I think it's 8 months, if I'm not mistaken. And we met them through the Corazon Girl Cousins. So if you guys would come up and just share some more about yourself, we're so grateful to have them here with us.
Thank you. Sure. Good evening, everyone. My name is Jimmy. This is my wife, Chelsea. We are very happy and proud to be here to just share this word regarding emotional chastity, and congratulations on the 5 years. That's amazing. This is actually my first time for Maple Moore, but I have been in the Quotas Home Freedom Ministry in the past, and from what I take, I know there's a lot of chastity-based roots on both ministries, and it's just beautiful to see everyone here gathered together and sharing in community. I feel like we're kind of making our way out of one pandemic. The world's still kind of going crazy and everything, but God is good. You know, we got to keep forward, keep pushing through. But I will also let my wife here give a word for her introduction. This is Chelsea.
Hey guys, this is actually our first time speaking together. I'm usually the one giving much on my own, but this is awesome, being married now, right? Like what the Lord is calling us to do. And man, Yonkers, you guys will deep, because I was not thinking it was going to be such a big turnout. But it's so awesome to see you guys all here. I know Lane wants someone to pray for us, so we'll definitely do that, because we should always start with that before anything else.
Yeah, so if anyone would like to come up and pray for our speakers.
You can pray for them. I think the only speaker that's it's that one.
Thank you, Louis.
We can all raise our hands for our brother here. Well, sorry, brother and sisters here. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Lord, we want to thank you for this night. We want to ask that you descend your Holy Spirit upon all our hearts today, especially these two who are about to impart on us some wisdom that you have given them, because they ask you freely. So I also ask that you open the hearts of everyone here, so that we might be able to receive just their joys, their sorrows, their pain, and their lives. And that way we can apply it to our lives in the hope that it glorifies you. We ask this through the intercession of your most blessed Virgin Mary, Mother of God, through all your angels and saints, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen. Amen.
Okay, so, sorry, and I don't want to make or making it hard. Okay, so, emotional chastity, who has heard of this phrase before? Right, like that's like buzzword, you know, pretty popular, especially with theology of the body. Does anyone know what it means? Raise your hand if you know what it means. Okay, so interesting, because over here.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay, we'll do that. We're live, guys, so we're figuring it out as it goes. So it's interesting that a good amount of you raised your hand because you heard the word, but not everyone knows what the word or the phrase means. So we're going to take some time to talk about what this means. We want it to be a little bit lighthearted and not, I guess, too deep. But this is something that's important because during these past 2 years of being through this pandemic, I think there has been more of an emotional chastity crisis that has been upon us because of how connected we have been through the internet and not being face-to-face or in person and having like those relationships that we were so used to. Although, you know, thankfully now we've been making more progress to go back into being together and being in person and in regard to dating relationships, right? So St. John Paul II, who is like a grandfather to me and to my husband, because he is the one who really has taught us the riches of God through the body, theology of the body, you know, what is love and responsibility and what does that look like? And one of his quotes that I love is, the greater the sense of responsibility for the other person, the greater the love that there is for that person. So when you love someone, you should feel a sense of responsibility, like this is someone that the Lord has put in my life for me to care for them, to love them, to respect them, right? And I'm sure everyone here has experienced that to a certain degree. And it's not just in that sentimental or intimate relationship, but whether it's with family or friends.
Okay, so with emotional chastity, obviously we have what plays a role is our emotions. So given that our emotions are always neutral, our goal is to guide them to virtue and through our reason and intellect. So given that, we always want to be aware of our emotions, just like how we may be aware of maybe our bodies talking to us with regards to health, in our spiritual life with regards to our prayer life. Our emotions play a big role. We don't want to allow them to really dominate and overcome who we are. They are a gift to us, but we shouldn't receive them as a threat. So it's important, I believe, for each and every one of us in our prayer lives, in our approach to where we are, in our relationships, whether it's also in our work, with whoever we interact, just to be aware of those things and not to allow them to overcome us.
Right, and I don't think a lot of people know or knew that emotions are neutral, right? Because we, in our society, have been taught to think that our emotions are not to be trusted, that we need to suppress them, that we can't trust our hearts, which in the Bible it does say, right? Like, do not trust the heart, it is deceiving. But it's all about the proper context, it's like you should not trust your heart in isolation, right, by itself. And so it is our reason, our intellect that the Lord has given us. So our mind serves our heart, but our heart takes primacy, right? Because the Lord gave us a heart to lead us to the truth about who we are, who the other person is, and who He is. And so that is the beauty of being an integrated person, and essentially that's what it means to be Catholic, to be an integrated individual, to be an integrated person, to give of yourself in this way. And so understanding that my heart can lead me to truth, and I need to form my mind, which we will talk about what that looks like, in order to make myself as a gift, and what Jimmy was saying, right? All right, so in that way, our emotions are actually a gift, and they're not a threat. They're not something that we should see in a negative light, and that we can use in our relationships to help us, strive for those relationships that are healthy and holy. And again, what is emotional chastity? So you guys all received a ticket for a giveaway of some books that I donated. One of them is called Emotional Virtue by Sarah Swafford. So she is a Catholic author and speaker, and she talks a lot about this, of what emotional chastity, or another way of saying it is emotional virtue, is. And so her definition is that it is the right ordering of our thoughts, our actions, and desires in the context of relationships. And when you think about it, right, like when we analyze it from a thought, so our thoughts become our words become our actions become our character, right? And then our character is who we are to the world and for ourselves, right? So emotional chastity is important because it is about the integration of the person and the gift that you make of yourself to others. And I know that for us, being married 8 months now, our singlehood, and we'll talk about this when we share our experience, but when we were single, that was such a critical time to really prepare ourselves to be gifts to one another, and so for all of us here today, whether you are called to be married or called to be a priest or a religious, the time before you make it to the altar, is really important. To be able to possess yourself, to give yourself. So we'll talk about that. And it's all based on the level of our commitment to another person when we are talking about relationships. And so I have an image that kind of depicts that in a really nice way. So this is the pyramid of intimacy, and that's JP2 right there in the corner. Right, he has told us, right, that the task of every man is the dignity of every woman, and vice versa, that the task of every woman is the dignity of every man. So we both have the same task, to love and respect one another. and to uphold each other's dignity. And something, or the mindset that I've always had prior to being married when I was in dating relationships was, I want the best for the person that I'm dating, or I want heaven for the person that I'm dating, even if that means that I'm not the one for them, or I'm not the one that they end up, making a vow to. And it's good to have a mindset like that because it kind of sets the tone for the relationship. Because if I want heaven for you, like, I want the best for you, I want holiness for you. And I can either help you get there or I can help you go the opposite way, And when you think about it like that, it's a big responsibility on what we're called to do in relationships. So he also says, right, to let every man look first upon a woman as sister and then as a possible bride, and vice versa, right? Anything that is said to a man is also said to a woman, that we should see men as our brothers first. And that doesn't mean that if you like someone that you have to friend zone them. Like, that doesn't mean that, oh, that's my sister, oh no, that's my brother, I can't like them, like, oh no, please go away. No, that's not what that means. It just means that the way that I would respect my brother or my sister is the same way that I would respect someone that I'm attracted to or that I have feelings for. Like, it shouldn't change. So yeah, this is a really cool image of kind of like steps of levels of commitment, right? Like friendship, you get to know the person better, you get to know their family. It can turn into an exclusive relationship that can lead to an engagement and then lead to marriage. And then in that marriage covenant, you experience that sexual intimacy. But that the love begins there, like through that respect and through that friendship.
Okay, so I'm going to start with emotional disorder just to kind of give us an idea of what that may look like. And really just for ourselves, like I remember just from a personal experience of, before encountering the Lord, kind of where I was at in life. And it just, really once I did have that encounter with the Lord, almost seeking a table similar to this, where I really just checked myself and said, okay, where am I at emotionally? I remember at the time I was just really yearning to be in a relationship. I just had come out of one. I wanted kind of to rebound and then, make someone feel special again. Also feel special, myself through the eyes of someone else. But the Lord, I realized, had just a lot of work to do in me. And what I recall is kind of being in the place of emotional disorder, and I was just like, I didn't want to look at that list. I just saw it as something completely messy, something that, okay, maybe, this is going to take a week, this will take 5 days, this one I can knock off by today. But it's really not. I realized that just day by day through prayer, and allowing the Lord to just do the work that He has to do with however long that may be, but just each one of us, or at least for me, just having an open heart to for the Lord to do the work, and also for myself to do the work as well. That was the important time at that time. So going back to emotional disorder, some of the things here are suppressing emotions. Just hiding emotions. At least for me, speaking as a man, maybe they're like, oh, we're bulletproof, like Superman, we don't feel nothing. But I think at the end of the day, we do feel things. So the words from our brothers or sisters or what we receive, they do matter. So it's having in order to receive or to understand where that other person may be coming from or where they're at, and not allowing those, like knowing who we are to the eyes of the Lord, right? So really just not suppressing those emotions, prudence, so oversharing. That really kind of goes to the extent of, if you are, wanting to talk to a friend, or let's say you're wanting to talk to someone you're interested in, maybe not emotionally dumping on that person at the time is not the right thing to do. With that too, it's not having a lack of self-control, being too reactive in, what is being said to you, not being able to just slowly digest what is being said. Being obsessive, so obviously you may meet someone who you're really attracted to. Right away you may get away with like, oh, send me a text, that you got home. Okay, that's cool, but you don't need to text her like 5 minutes later, hey, are you still awake or something like that. Just having the appropriate discernment to check your emotions, to know that God willing, yes, that person will be there tomorrow, and you can say a good morning and start again. Also, too, with emotional disorders, just not being judgmental. I think these last two really just speak for themselves with what they are. It's everyone's in a work in progress. These are emotions that I must confess I still struggle with. And then the last one being jealous, jealousy, just not having that. If we see a brother or sister that, we see them striving, they may be in a relationship, married, they may look like they have it all together, but real deep down inside, we don't know fully everything. We only see the exterior, and not the interior life. So it's always important to not focus on or hyper-focus on the external or what you see and allow that to dictate your emotions. But really just to carry your emotions within yourself and then invite the Lord to walk with you on those.
So then thinking about emotional order, it's like you can sleep, in peace at night like Homer when you know that you're able to identify and express like, right now this is how I'm feeling, because sometimes it's like we're living it through our bodies, but we're not actually aware of what it is that you're experiencing, so being able to name it like, right now I am feeling angry because XYZ. Right now I am feeling jealous because XYZ. Right now, like, this is how I'm feeling, and that allows you to process it in a healthier way, right? And so being self-aware of your interior life, of your emotional life, being responsive, right? The opposite of being reactive, having the ability to just pause. Like, you don't have to react to everything, or you don't have to be quick to respond. Like, it doesn't have to be, the tip for the top. Like, you can just hold off and wait and really think about what you want to say. Being able to ask for forgiveness, right? Like, identifying what you did wrong, because this is a really hard one, right? We want everyone to ask us for forgiveness, but we don't want to be the first to apologize, right? And I know I struggle with this, and Lord have mercy. Like, it's so sanctifying in marriage, seriously, which we'll get to share a little bit. But yeah, it's really important to have that awareness of, okay, like, I'm not perfect, and I shouldn't pretend like I am. It's okay for me to identify what it is that I'm struggling with, and let the person that I'm in relationship know, because they are deserving of that. Because sometimes, like, if we aren't quick to apologize or ask for forgiveness, which, the Word of God does tell us that we should be quick, to seek forgiveness instead of being quick to being angry, right? Which is what we're prone to doing. It just gives so much peace in a relationship when it's like, wow, like, this person actually cares about how I'm receiving the way that they're treating me, or how I'm receiving the way that they're acting towards me, that they care enough to apologize for what they said and what they did. Like, I matter to them. So this is just a sign of respect for self and for the other when you're able to pinpoint what you did and ask for forgiveness in that area. Being empathetic, and then as of late, just cultivating what I would call like a posture of holy curiosity, which really like allows for true intimacy, emotional intimacy. And what does that mean, like holy curiosity, right? Because sometimes curiosity can backfire on you, where you really want to know about someone, and you're asking questions, but the person is not receiving it well. Like, you're bruising the other person instead of them feeling like you actually care to get to know them. So holy curiosity is like, when someone does something that triggers you to react, like taking a step back and really wanting to know more.
about the person that you're in a relationship with. Like, hey, you know, when I said that, why do you think that you reacted that way? Or why do you think that you responded that way? Like, what did that bring up in you? You know, like, I want to be here to help you and support you, you know? So, like, asking those questions to truly understand the other person, right? Because it's like we're all, like, peeling those layers of the onion, you know? Like, a lot of us have a lot of wounds, a lot of struggles, a lot of trauma. And being in a relationship where you have to be vulnerable in order to achieve that intimacy, you know, like, having that posture of holy curiosity, you can really allow yourself to unfold in front of someone and it be safe. It's a safe place where you're actually received and not rejected, right? And I think this is truly the longing of all of our hearts, to be received, to be able to unveil these hidden parts of ourselves, our wounds, our glory, our wounds, all these things, and it be loved and affirmed by the other. So our journey towards striving for emotional virtue will okay. So I guess a little bit about who I am, right? I see some familiar faces here. Some of you know me. Some of you have walked with me here. I walked with some of you in here. So it's been a privilege to be in ministry, especially for me, since I was 16 years old. I'm now 27. So the Lord had a lot of mercy on me. You know, I come from a broken home. My parents were divorced, and then my mother remarried, and my stepfather actually passed away a year ago on the feast of Our Lady of Guadalupe. But it was always a struggle for me to allow myself to be loved. And I know that a lot of us here have experienced the same thing, right? To allow ourselves to be seen by another person, to be loved, to be accepted. And so we settle for false truths, for false love. Because either it's what we saw, it's all we've experienced, and we've convinced ourselves that it's all we're going to get because it's what we deserve. And, you know, that is a lie from the devil, right? If you're here, it's because you're made for more, right? Literally. And the Lord has so much for us, so much to give, and for us to just be in a place of disposition and surrender. Like, I'm ready to receive more of what you want from me, Lord. And so being a part of Corazón Puro for about 10 years and just serving and healing and going through all of these things, right? Like chastity, just like typical chastity, right? I was like, okay, I got this ring on my finger, like, all right, I'm going on missions, I'm giving these talks, like, I got it, right? It's like you almost have this sense of pride, like, okay, like this isn't a struggle for me, right? But when we talk about emotional chastity, that was really my struggle area. And maybe some of you here can relate to that, which some people might be the opposite, right? Like the physical chastity is the harder part, maybe, or it's all of it. But amen, right? We're all here, and we're striving for holiness. And so emotional chastity was difficult for me, right? And it's like I fell prey to what maybe a lot of women here do, which is you date someone in your imagination for a very long time and you get nowhere. Right? So you're wasting your time being so invested in another person that it just leads you further away from the Lord, further away from your vocation, further away from who you even want to be. And you didn't realize how you got there, but when you look back, you see all the little steps that took you there, and then you say, okay, like, this is clearly not what emotional virtue looks like, right? And so, you know, we even mentioned, like, just the negative, right? Like the emotional disorder, right? Being obsessive, mental stalking, right? Checking that person's social media all the time, that if you see a picture of them with somebody else and you're like, who's that? I don't know who that is. And then you go on their profile, and then you go on somebody else's profile, and then you go so deep down the rabbit hole that you don't even realize, like, how did I even get here? Right? And like the jealousy and all of these things. And, you know, I struggled with a lot of those things. And, you know, and I can't even blame the men that people would say, oh no, he was leading you on and all these things. But you know what the truth was? I let them lead me on, right? Like I let them do it. So I'm not ever gonna point a finger, oh no, like this guy, no sirve, like he's trash, he's this, that. No, right? Like I have to take responsibility for myself, right? And as a woman, like that's what I need to do. You know, like pointing the fingers to another person is never gonna solve the issue. And so, by the grace of God, right? Like tragedies always happen, right? And then you finally realize like the lie that you were living in. And so, you know, I realized like I feel called to be married, and what do I need to prepare for that, right? Like the healing process, the steps that I need to take, right? I need to end these toxic relationships that are not leading me anywhere. You know, I need to establish boundaries. I need to be clear with what it is that I'm looking for in a relationship, so that when I start dating, like I'm not wasting anyone's time, whether it's mine or the other person, right? Because remember what I was saying earlier, like the mindset is I want the best for you, even if that means that I'm not the one for you. So to already have that like in the forefront of your mind, so when you go in dating relationships, it's like, okay, we don't jive, like it's not here, you know, it's not you, it's me. No, like, and that can be true that it's not the other person, because it is you, because you know what you want, right? You know what you're looking for. You're emotionally mature. You're able to actually tell the person, hey, you know what? This was great. I'm not interested. I hope that you find the person that you're looking for, right? Instead of ghosting people, because that's disrespectful, right? And I'm not going to tell you I didn't do that. I did that. And that was a problem, right? And so this is to say, right, that we didn't get it perfect. That's not why we're up here speaking. You know, it's because we went through it and we struggled. But to the glory of God, right, we were able to figure it out when we found each other. And now just striving to have emotional intelligence in our marriage, which just is like a whole different, like a whole different ballpark of what that means and what that looks like. But, you know, the steps that it took to get there, and we'll talk about later, you know, like how to live this out, you know, some practical tips and things like that. But I can say that by the time that I met my husband, Jimmy, for me, when I met him, I'm like, whoa, like this guy, like has it together, like emotionally, like I didn't even think he liked me, guys. Like that's how much like he was just so like focused on what he needed to do. Because I'm just so used to like seeing when someone was trying to flirt with me or, you know, things like that. But no, like he respected me. And when it was time, and he'll share, when he knew in his heart that it was time to pursue me, he was so clear. And that's how I knew that he was different, or that this was different, because of the clarity. You know, and that's really important, that I know a lot of us struggle with, that, you know, whether it's the ghosting, right? Like, but what happened? You know, like, do I need to hit them up? Like, was it me? Did I say something? You know, and it's like, you can't even go to sleep at night trying to figure it out. It's like this puzzle that just is so difficult. But when I met him, that clarity, that intentionality, right? It's like, you know, he said all the right words and he was clear about it, and like that just set the tone. Like at that point he got it right, so that's why it worked. But yeah, like all of that at that point, you know, was really helpful in our discernment journey of you know, dating, courtship, engagement, to helping us understand, like, you know, are we called to be married to one another?
Thank you. Yeah, so like my wife's saying, just I guess for me in a male perspective, kind of my journey through you know, late teens, like going to college, working. I thought I had it all figured out. I was just, you know, living my life. All I really looked forward to was, you know, partying. When I moved to New York, well, let me tell you something that the Lord knew. Yeah, Jersey boy. The Lord knew what He was doing and when the right time would be for me to move to New York, because it had to happen really at the moment of where I had just, like I was saying earlier, had just gotten my heart broken, and I was just, you know, looking for something new. And the Lord in all His craziness, I don't mind sharing this, but I met all the right people through Catholic community in New York City, and it wasn't even that I was necessarily looking for it, but I went to an event downtown in New York City, and some of these people happened to. Ooh, okay, maybe I shouldn't tell that one. But no, in all seriousness, just it pretty much moved me back into the same neighborhood as my ex-girlfriend. Now, I was like, Lord, you are crazy, because this didn't happen before. It would have made I was living in New Jersey at the time, but it would have made my relationship with my ex-girlfriend maybe much easier, I thought, at least in my head. And at the same time, I was kind of just, I think even then, without really knowing much about like emotional chastity or really checking in with what that could mean, just, practicing, okay, like we just got out of like this relationship, I'm not gonna bombard her, I'm not gonna tell her I'm period, this and that. And I was still just, I kept checking myself and telling myself, Lord, you brought me here, this is your crazy idea, like, what is happening, what is going on? And then from there, really just, I remember, and maybe this is, once again, the Lord in his crazy ways, like how I really occupied my time, because this was my first time living on my own in New York City, like where I wanted to be, and, just going to as many events as I could. So I would go to Corazon Puro. I never made it to Made for More. First time here, yes, get that one checked off my list. But like there were so many events, and sometimes like I would go to these events and I would be the only guy there. So some of the girls are when we'd be around like certain nuns, like, wow, blessed are you among women. I'm like, yeah, I guess this is great. This is me single at the time, by the way, too. So it was really just like I remember just also being like, oh, could she be the one? And then I would see another one like during holy hour, like, oh, she looks so holy and attractive. Like, it was such a like yearning in my heart to be living out like this wanting to give of myself and wanting to receive from someone else, but really just realizing that I needed to do some work. So really, I feel like that's where the Lord, I think, started presenting the right people and just the right words, the right thoughts, and even the right rejections. Because as a guy myself, I did, pursue other women, and I can sure hear for all men, whether single or married, or at some point, you do have to have that courage, because it's like you have to be the leader in a relationship, and you have to pursue the woman. At least that's how it should be. So, gentlemen, please do it. And I, for me, it was just a matter of like approaching a woman. I remember, and it was like just receiving that no, and I was like, no, like what do you mean no? So, and I was like confident, but the Lord is wise in telling me that, because as I look now, Jimmy, maybe a couple years down the line, and I look back, I'm like, yeah, I really wasn't ready. So with that, I started just kind of, once again, checking my emotions, checking to see where I was at. And the word that kept refraining in my mind was like, I'm just too comfortable. In this comfort, I'm just never going to really allow the word, the word of the Lord, or the Lord to really tell me, what I need to do. So in that, the Lord just started moving a bunch of things around. I'm like, what's going on? Losing roommates, do I live in New York City? What is happening here? In that, I ended up moving to, with my brother over there, Jonathan, I ended up moving to JP2 house. I was like, okay, cool, I'm going to live with Jesus. This is going to be great. It was beautiful, but it was also hard, and the comfort was gone, which was great. But then the Lord started like putting another thought in my mind. I'm like, oh wow, like religious life looks really awesome, and it's something that I would want. But then again, here I am, going to all these events, just living out my day-to-day, and meeting both wonderful men and women in the journey towards holiness. And I just had a decision to make, and I remember that at least for me, where I finally was able to find peace, which I think with our emotions, we have to find peace in them, was in the same way. For me, it was knocking at the door of a religious community and saying, you know what, maybe it's here where I need to be, and if not, then just hearing the rejection from there too. But at least I know. So both whether it's receiving a no from someone you're interested in a woman, or for a woman just you telling a man no, it's fine, because that will continue to show us the path of where the Lord is trying to take us. So without dragging this too much longer, I'll just say, for me, just the emotional chastity, I think where I finally met Chelsea and my wife here, and she says that I had it all figured out.
It seemed like
It seemed like it. I remember just kind of a funny story. Like when I met her, and I did keep it cool for the couple times that we met, and she really had no idea, which was great. But like I remember when I made the call to be intentional, which that was something that was new for me, because most of the time I do remember, like, with a couple of girlfriends, not that I have multiple girlfriends, but girls that were friends, that I would just tell them, hey, let's go to this event, or let's go eat, let's go get lunch. But they were kind of just be dangled by a string, and they wouldn't know. And sometimes, in these events, if you're not intentional, or you don't, one of the parties doesn't let each other know, what the feelings are, then that's, like my wife was saying, you could potentially get hurt. So for me, I was like, this woman's super attractive, she's great, she's amazing, wow, she can speak. I saw her speak, or I did an introduction together, or something like that. But I was just like, could she be the one? And I remember with my roommate at the time, I'd just be going at it and telling him, wow, I met this beautiful woman, like, she's amazing. But then I kept it cool. And then I remember we were having dinner with my parents, and I made the call to be intentional from the car, but I did rehearse the call. I was like, I wonder if it's going to like this. You know what? I said, I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to call her, and I'm going to let her know, like, hey, the next time I see you, I just want to let you know that it's a date. And from that, I felt like just the whole world went on pause, and I was just waiting to hear, like, the yes or the no. Thank God it was a yes, and then that really just allowed for us to go through. So, thank you. But with that, yes, for me, just being in a good place emotionally, or just going through the journey of the 3 years or 4 years, whatever it was at the time, it was a good place to receive a bunch of no's, to also see, like, where my heart was at, and not just try to pursue something straight on. Really just take a step back, and just also take some time to listen, which I think the best way you could do that is just to be in a state of prayer and taking it to God.
Yeah, and it's funny because before we met, right, we were both in other relationships that, we discerned were not leading us to our ultimate vocation, or even closer to the Lord. And so it took around 2 years for the both of us, like, post those relationships, to finally feel like we were at a place to start dating again. And that's just how, the Lord works, right? Like, sometimes we just don't understand the timing, and we get frustrated. And, we want to be, how we say in Spanish, reclamándole al Señor, like, when is it going to happen? Like, I've been faithful to you, like, where are these promises, and we start asking all these questions, as we should, right? Because He is our Father, and we should feel confident to say these things, to bare our hearts to Him. But, like, in that wisdom of, like, now in retrospect, like, where we're at now, I'm like, wow, like, God was so good that, He was working on both of our hearts during that time period, little did we know, to be able to be that gift to each other. But yeah, so how to live it out, right? St. Teresa of Avila, she is amazing. I would recommend everyone to read Interior Castle, but that one is really dense. So if you can find a summary, but no, you should read it. She talks a lot about the importance of self-awareness, and honestly, in the spiritual life, I think this is key. Like, you need self-awareness if you want to be emotionally chaste, if you want to be emotionally intelligent, if you want to navigate relationships in a healthy way and not get burned out, or, like, in these toxic situations. Right? Because man can only give the gift of himself when he possesses himself, as it says in God Meets Best. And so it really is one of the best things that you can do, whether you're in a relationship now or especially if you're single.
Okay, so with how to live it out, also too, we have the purity of intention. So for men, I would repeat this 10 times if I have to. Oh yes, so yes. So men, be not afraid to DTR, which stands for define the relationship. So this is really important. Just once again, be intentional. If you find yourself that you're ready to step into a relationship, obviously the other person is also open to friendship, and just lead on. Like ask the question. If it's a no, it's okay. God willing, the other person too, being that they're in the same walk, it's not going to be like maybe how the world does it, where they tell you no and they never want to see you again. Because like my wife has been saying, it's like we want holiness for all of us. So if that person is not the one that the Lord has put in front of you, or that has chosen for you, then one way that we can know that is by asking. In the same way, for the woman, just be not afraid to ask for clarity. So for those times that men do struggle with defining the relationship, if you feel that you're being led on, or that he's asking me to go to holy hours, and now we're praying before bed, and all these things, it's like, okay, what are we doing here? Are we working towards like a vocation, or is this like a prayer buddy? But like, it's not fair for everyone involved. It's good to have those friendships. I think those friendships are beautiful, especially if they're for both between man and woman. Obviously, maybe easier among men, and also just among women. Probably why religious don't really have institutions where it's both nuns and friars living in the same place, because it'd be kind of crazy, But on to the next.
Right, so with that being said, right, sometimes you need to establish boundaries in relationships or friendships, right, when appropriate. Emotionally, right, because what he just mentioned was a great example. Speaking really late into the night, or especially if you haven't defined the relationship, that you're actually in a committed relationship, that this is your boyfriend and this is your girlfriend, right? Because they could call you wifey or hubby, but if they haven't claimed you as a boyfriend or girlfriend, I don't really know that you're in a relationship with that person, right? Like, words matter. So the language that we use dictates like what the reality is, right? Because this is the issue with living in our like fantasy world imaginations, because we can be led to think that we're living something, but the truth is we're not. And so, words matter, and those boundaries, and there could be so many things, right? But boundaries protect yourself and protect the other person, protect the relationship. And even now being married, like, we have boundaries within ourselves, and like, we're not comfortable. This was a boundary that we both decided, like having like close friends of the opposite sex and hanging out like one-on-one, like we hang out in groups, we can have those friendships, but we're not like texting them every day, like that's exclusive to our relationship, and yeah, so you can think about like what are some boundaries that I want to have in a dating relationship, or just with my girlfriends or guy friends, right? Like even for myself when I was single, it's like, I need to treat my guy friends differently than the men that I'm interested in. The men that I want to date are not going to be treated the same way as like my buddies, my guy friends, and they need to know that, right? Because that clarity is helpful for everyone. Okay. Being a conscious consumer, right? So like, this one is interesting because a lot of us don't realize that what we constantly are forming ourselves with or consuming, like, does have an effect in how we behave or how we treat others, right? So this is like, what are we listening to? What are we watching? What are we reading? Like, what media are we constantly being consumed by? We become what we consume. And so we can think that what we watch doesn't play a role, but yet it starts to, kind of normalize certain behaviors of how to treat, for me, like how to treat men because of what I see and what I hear and like conversations that I entertain with others. And so being mindful of, the media consumption and making sure that I'm trying to form myself with what is good, what is true, and what is beautiful.
So the next one is discerning the fruits of the Holy Spirit. So once again, this one, at least to me, how I think of it, is, is there peace, joy, kindness, and patience? So really, one that stands out for me, or I would say that stands out in the fruit of the Holy Spirit is, going to prayer. And once again, I think I heard this recently, but in prayer, we may be tempted to just, even with the Lord, just dumping everything, which is good. But I think one of the beautiful things, too, that we are asked to do as His children is to take the time to listen. And in that listening, it just may be a total silence that may feel uncomfortable, but that is a good fruit of the Holy Spirit, and that's really where the Lord's going to speak to us and let us know, okay, where are we at? Is there actually like that peace? Do we feel joy even in this uncomfortable silence? And are we being patient? So I think a lot of things just kind of go back to prayer and really just discerning, not just about ourselves, but also too if we are already in a relationship with someone else, or we're discerning to, as men, to ask someone else. So we do find a relationship. It's important. Prayer is key. Back to my wife.
And then lastly, just seeking healing, right? I think after maybe listening to some of the things we pointed out with like emotional disorder, maybe you resonated with some of those things that we pinpointed or that we spoke about. And these are all things that we can give to the Lord, right? Present to Him in prayer. And just knowing that we're never going to reach the point of like perfection on this side of heaven, right? Like, we're constantly being transformed, glory to glory. But it is ultimately in eternity where like we'll have this ultimate fulfillment and be perfect, right? But healing is possible to the point where like you can be in a place to be in a healthy relationship with another person, and some of us, we've been through certain traumas, we've been through abuse, we've been in toxic situations where it's hard to trust, it's hard to be vulnerable, it's hard to be honest, and you may not even want to because it's the fear of, what if it's going to happen again, like this keeps happening to me, and these things that we tell ourselves, and that we ingrain in our minds that it's going to happen again, right? But, in the name of Jesus, like you can seek that healing out and He can set you free to love, free to give of yourself and to try again and to be not afraid. So just some resources, because people always ask, okay, great, we were right on point. Some resources that people ask, like how can I guess, be more intentional about trying to work on my emotional life, my interior life, and try to get better at that. So books, one of the ones that's being raffled, Emotional Virtue, is a good one. Podcasts, I really love Adam Young's The Place We Find Ourselves is a great podcast. If you want to learn more about just like your story and like, your emotional life and things like that. Restore the Glory is another good one too. Journaling is great, and actually it's really good because when you write down, like when you're going through it emotionally, or like you're in a relationship and you're trying to like figure out like if this is it, like you can have a place to go back to and kind of see patterns and kind of see things that stick out, and it helps you, especially if you do go to counseling. It's like good to go back to that and like think, where was I during that time, and seeing those patterns and being able to share that, in counseling and spiritual direction. Mentors, and I think, we're in a generation that we've lost touch with mentoring, because that's something that, back in the day, like everyone was always under the wing of someone, especially like young men and young women. They were like always under the wing of someone, and we kind of lost the art of that, and I think that's so beautiful and key, and like finding like wise people in your life, especially like wise couples. Whether they're like an older couple that you admire and you're like, wow, like you can learn so much from them, or like even if they're like young married couples, or if you're called to the religious life, like those holy like religious men and women, like I want to learn more about how they're able to give up themselves in that way. And so finding those people in our lives and just learning from them, there's so much wisdom there. And of course, nonetheless, frequenting the sacraments, I mean, that is where all grace comes from, and where we should always try our best to go back to, confession, reconciliation, the Eucharist. So all of these things that can help us on our journeys to emotional chastity, and ultimately just giving of our lives to the Lord and to others and setting the world ablaze. I think that is all.
Amen.
Thank you so much, Chelsea and Jimmy, for that amazing talk and for sharing with us your experience as a couple in your singlehood and in your marriage. So right now we're going to open up the floor for questions. So if you have any questions, now's your time. You can just raise your hand. Awesome. We have a first question.
What was the name of the podcast again?
Adam Young is the first one, The Place We Find Ourselves. Just want to say he is Protestant, but he's a counselor that kind of does things through like, through the eyes of trauma and like God in your stories. But he has an amazing perspective, very helpful. And then the other one is Catholic. It's called Restore the Glory.
And those are all predominantly about emotional chastity?
There are aspects that go into emotional healing and chastity and sexual integrity and things of that nature. So things that are similar to working in this area, yes, you will find resources for that.
Right, so if I was like, talking to a friend, and I was like, go listen to Restore the Glory, it's not like half the time going to be about the saints, and they're going to be like, why did you say that?
No, they're so both podcasts are by psychologists or counselors, and so they give that dynamic, but they're also people of faith, so they add like the Lord in it, so it's a really nice perspective.
Thank you.
Yes, you talked about another book. Is it by a saint or?
Was it Interior Castle? St. Teresa of Avila?
Yeah.
Yeah. That one's good about like I guess the interior life and self-awareness and things like that.
Thank you.
Do you have any questions?
Any other questions?
Well, I want to say thank you I agree with a lot, if not everything that you guys just said. I think that's very helpful. Could you help define for some of us that clarity, especially when it comes to the friendship idea? Because I feel as though some men kind of look at women as like, oh, is she my potential wife or not? How would you describe, how is the proper view of as a man to look at a woman and say, that's my sister, opposed to a potential, how would that friendship look like almost? Or what should someone think in a way?
Well, no, I think that's a great question. And a lot of us have like the right motivation. It's like you're wanting to give your life to the Lord. You want to serve Him. You want to discover your vocation, right? Like these are all good things. But sometimes on the pursuit of that, instead of like really pausing and thinking about when you're presented with someone that you're interested in, instead of like really discerning like, is this the one? It's like, oh, they're the one. It's like you already made them the one in your mind before you actually even got to know them, right? So it's like you're already setting yourself up mentally and emotionally for, a difficulty in that dynamic, right? So it's like having that self-possession, and it's like, knowing what it is that you're looking for, because throwing ourselves into relationships sometimes, like, we're not even sure what it is, like, what are those qualities, that I want in a future spouse, so that when I'm getting to know new people, whether it starts off as a friendship, like, as I spend more time with them, it becomes clearer in my heart, like, what I see. But I guess specifically in the dynamic for men and like how a man can view a woman as a sister first.
So I would say. So what was that? Sorry.
So in a way, as a man who sees another woman, to avoid putting that, like she was saying, that setup of this might be my wife. What is the proper setup that you should look naturally to another woman?
Sure.
That would be your friend.
I mean, from at least my personal experience, I would say that just sorry, kind of put us funny. But really, I guess just with my wife, like how I approached it. So for me, and going back to I guess how she said that I always kept it cool. It was always just a matter of, once again, just checking my emotions. For me, I've been a person that I admire, like the physical beauty of a woman. So obviously in Chelsea, I remember the first time she walked in through the church door. She was a little late, but nonetheless, I was like, wow, who is she? She's got like some swagger coming in, looking good. And I was already in the pew, like kneeling down, like, saying my prayer to Jesus. But I remember just being so captivated and just like, oh wow, Lord, I admire her beauty. I wanted to, already, I guess the prayer event to finish to see if maybe, I make eye contact or if I talk to her or whatever. So I think once again, going back to like what my wife was saying, like not allowing our mind to really control or take over, the emotions to take over, and really just going, day by day, trusting in the Lord that, okay, Lord, if she's the one, it's going to be just a natural progress. It's going to be evenly yoked throughout the whole courtship, relationship, friendship. Obviously, I think things should start as a friendship because me back then or anyone here just going up to strangers saying, hey, you want to, go on a date. At least maybe in the eyes of the world, it's like it's a popular thing between all these dating apps and things like that. But I think within the faith, it may just look a little differently because you do want to get to know the other person just on a more emotional level or just like intellectual level. You want to build something before you truly start giving more of yourself and like, presenting where you are and also hearing of where the other person is. So, yeah, to your question, at least with regards to men or how to, like, what that process may look like, it's just, taking a step back and going little by little.
Thank you.
Yeah. And like last that I would say to that is also, like getting to know new people, like in group settings is great. 'Cause I think there's so much pressure in like feeling like you need to get to know someone, like that you just met like one-to-one because someone else is going to get to them and then you can lose a chance and things like that. So, but, like it's also trusting that like, the Lord will provide an opportunity too. Like, it's like you are attracted to someone, like you can make that aware, like you can process that as like, wow, like I feel attracted to this person, like Lord, like, help me to, or like show me, what my relationship to that person should be, like just friends or like, because if you're attracted to someone, it's like you see something in them, right? Like you see something good, true, and beautiful in them. It doesn't always mean that it's sexual, right? Or like we think that sometimes that it has to be that. But no, maybe you're just attracted to like their spirit, right? You're attracted to their charisma. And there's so many things that we can be attracted to, but to, sometimes we like over-sexualize these feelings that come up, and I think that's important too, because even being married, it's like we can't act like we're never going to be attracted to other individuals, like, right? Because like that's how we are. We're human, like we see beauty. We're attracted to beauty, and there's nothing wrong with that. But it's what we do with what we behold, right? So it's like, do I move forward? Like, do I move towards that? Or do I just recognize that and then bless it and then give it to the Lord and then move on? Depending what my situation is, right? Like I'm married, like we're married. We're not going to entertain those types of things, but that we can't deny that those things will ever come up because they will. But going back to the getting to know other people, like, yeah, I think group settings are really good to just get to know people and learn more about them, right? Like getting to know who the person is better and their family and their interests. And then that's how you can kind of cultivate and know, like, am I actually interested in this person that I want like an exclusive relationship with them? Or like, okay, I know enough about them that I'm like okay with just being friends with them, and like it gets clearer once you like let it go, like you're not attached to like I need to have an outcome, like they need to be the one.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. That was great.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Oh, now you got a question.
Well, I have one question. How can we practice emotional chastity in other relationships, not just like romantic relationships? If you don't mind explaining.
Sure. So I would say, I guess at least for me, in the aspect of work, for me, I work in the field with a bunch of dentists. So a lot of times emotions can get a little riled up because there's a lot of high expectations. I mean, we'll walk into some so-called like fire where the doctor is very upset. So being that I'm in that field, like my approach is like, okay, look, I'm here to help you. And how I do that a lot of time is like I like to see where that other person is, or in this case being the doctor, and just saying, to myself, okay, emotionally, I see you're very upset. What is my response going to be? And sometimes you have to be firm. So for me, like in my response, if I feel like I'm being attacked or someone's attacking me or something like that, I also have to be firm, not in a disrespectful way, but also just keeping in mind that like I don't have to be in a Catholic group setting or in church to practice what I believe, like the virtues that I have to have the self-mastery to know who I am and to live those out. And it's funny enough, like a lot of times by the time I walk out, these doctors are, being buddy with me because it really wasn't that big of a deal at the end of the day. Like things get resolved, things happen. So just allowing these emotions, I would say, just at work, to not allow them to overtake us and just choose to be joyful and peaceful.
I think it comes back to love and responsibility, right? When I love someone, like I need to know what my responsibility is in order to love them well, right? So it's my responsibility for me to know myself, right? I can't expect another person to figure me out or to read my mind. And I know some of us struggle with that, right? Especially women. We maybe expect men to just figure us out, but we need to express how it is that we feel or what's going on or what we think, because that's our responsibility. It's not on someone else. And so relationships in general, just having that self-mastery and the ability to like self-regulate and know and check in with yourself, like, hey, like I'm feeling this way right now, you know what, like I need 5 minutes before I can give you a response to that. Maybe it was like a heated discussion or a heated conversation, like, you know what, like I need some time and then I'll get back to you, giving yourself that space and that ability to pause. And I think that we live in a world right now where we're afraid to just like be in silence. We feel like we need to give a response, where everything is so instantaneous because of the internet and all of that. Like, no, we can take a step back, we can pause, we can give space. Like, that's okay. We need that time to really think about and process, how we want to respond to other people, because we want to respect them and we want to love them and we want to honor them and not allow our emotions to dictate, that we need to react. And I know that's a struggle for me in marriage, and the Lord is sanctifying us through it. But it is important to, again, have that self-mastery, as Jimmy was saying, and be able to be responsible for our interior life and not impose that on someone else to figure us out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and so as you may have noticed, when you entered, you received a ticket. And so like we had mentioned, Chelsea has actually donated 2 great books here. And so we're going to do a raffle, and then the person who wins the first raffle is actually going to get the book of their choice. And then we're going to do a second raffle for the remaining books. And so I'll read out the books right now. The first one is called Emotional Virtue by Sarah Swafford. And the second one here is called Good News About Sex and Marriage by Christopher West. All right, so
Can you say goodbye to Instagram?
So to everybody tuning in, thank you so much for being here. And our next event, I'm going to have Elaine say the details.
So thank you so much for joining, and we invite you to our next event, which will be March 26th, and it's going to be with Mark Edelson, and it's going to be on finance. So as young adults, financing and our faith all integrated into one. So there we go. Thank you.